Good morning. I'm Dr. Paul Hatherley, and I'm the director for the Center for Mental and Emotional Development here in Logan, Utah. And this morning, I'm going to present the fourth in a series of videos that introduce the internal mental and emotional development necessary to create purpose, meaning, and fulfillment in our ordinary everyday lives. The internal development necessary to create purpose, meaning, and fulfillment, which is the foundation for lasting individual happiness as well as the evolution of our species, is needed if we're going to continue to grow and expand into our potentials as human beings, as well as into our individual unique talents and preferences. And we've already seen that we need to understand that our minds and emotions require training in order to develop so we can fulfill our potentials and feed our needs, as well as learn how to think for understanding. Now today, I want to talk about mastering positives versus controlling negatives. This is a major shift in how we respond to being alive and how we think about life. In normal life, we are taught to think in terms of controlling negatives like conflict in a marriage, habits that we think of as bad habits, addictions. Wherever we see a negative, our response is we want to control it. If we're sick, the definition of physical health by physicians has been that physical health is the absence of disease. Therefore, if you want to learn how to be healthy, you don't go to a physician. You only go to a physician if you're sick. And health hasn't even been a topic for human beings until the last 60 or 70 years, when it became a focus of attention and nutrition and exercise became important to people. We've done the same with our minds and emotions. We assume that if we aren't crazy, conflicted, neurotic, etc., then we are healthy. But we haven't actually understood, for instance, that being healthy as a person means understanding and then mastering our mental and emotional needs and potentials, as well as our external physical, material, and financial needs and potentials. So today we're going to talk about how to learn to acquire the information and skill necessary to be a complete and content human, internally and externally. In some ways it's simple. In some ways it's very complex and vast. But essentially, internal development can be boiled down to feeding 4 mental and emotional needs and learning how to use 7 mental tools in the scientific method to think for understanding. The 4 needs are learning how to express love, not to feel it, to express it, to understand it, and master the ability to be loving toward life, toward other people, toward nature, toward every moment that you're alive. The second need is learning how to pursue what's true. That requires that we learn how to observe and ask questions and get to understand that reality is sometimes painful sometimes depressing, sometimes joyful, sometimes exhilarating and inspiring. But our purpose needs to be to learn from reality. Learn about ourselves, learn about life, learn about nature. The third internal need is learning how to experience and create beauty. Beauty renews our energy. It inspires us to love life. And normally, we treat beauty as a pleasure. It's something that's nice, momentarily pleasing. But we don't learn to love truth and beauty and to integrate into our everyday lives the pursuit of truth and the experience and the ability to create beauty. And the fourth internal need is learning how to develop wisdom. Wisdom requires that we understand the patterns that define us. And we are able to look at those patterns and see which ones are life-affirming and lead to satisfaction and meaning and fulfillment, and which ones may be pleasant, but don't have any real meaning or lasting satisfaction and value. Wisdom helps us understand some of the mysteries of being human and alive and mortal. Normally, we either explain away mortality by believing that we're immortal, or we simply ignore it. Rarely do we acknowledge that mortality comes with being human. And we can't prove one way or the other if any part of us remains after we die. It's a matter of opinion and belief. So, if we say, okay, I want to believe I'm immortal, that's fine, as long as you keep some kind of separation between what you believe and what you can actually observe is true. Then you can see reality and you can hope for the best and prepare for the worst. And you're always grounded. So, with mental and emotional development, we learn how to feed these four needs: expressing love, pursuing truth, experiencing and creating beauty, and developing wisdom. Expressing love is the beginning, and in the last video I defined love as being defined as giving energy, interest, and attention over time for the innocent purpose of understanding and nurturing what we care about. As a child, I could see that my parents didn't really love me based on my child's view. And part of that was seeing that I actually thought about my parents and wanted to give them things that would enhance their life. And I could see that when it came to birthday and Christmas presents, they never thought about me, and also they would give me presents that were broken or just old and rusty, and I needed to clean them up and make them usable. And I could see they didn't think about me. I could see that my dad didn't think about my mom when she went to the hospital to have my brother. And I cleaned the house when I was 5 years old and wanted to make it look like an adult did it. But I could see that my mother or my father didn't think about my mother. And I did. I could also see that neither one thought about me. So when I was 8 years old, I confronted them. And I said, I don't think you love me. And their response was to be angry and think of me as being arrogant, ungrateful, and insulting. So they sent me to bed after punishing me with a belt, without dinner, and the next day I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was right. They didn't love me because they weren't interested in understanding why I thought that. So love became important to me to understand, and I began to see that loving life meant giving life my energy, interest, and attention every moment of every day, wanting to understand just the mysteries of being alive and human, wanting to understand my own needs and potentials and everyone else's, wanting to understand where human beings had been, to what degree had we learned how to fulfill ourselves and create a satisfying and meaningful life, and to what degree had we not. As I learned, I began to see that I needed information from books, movies, observing other people, and looking at every significant endeavor of human beings, from science to philosophy to literature, music, religion, spirituality, and see what each discipline, each intellectual and emotional and physical pursuit of human beings would have to teach me. After I had explored every avenue of where human beings had dealt with the fact of being alive and how to make it fulfilling and meaningful and purposeful, then I started on my own to just observe. Where were the holes in human awareness? And I found that when it comes to internal fulfillment, we didn't make any real progress throughout our civilized history. All of our attention has been on external survival and pleasure. So, if you have any real interest in understanding the internal side of being human, your own mind and emotions, and the needs and potentials and thought process required to fulfill your potentials and create a complete contentment based on knowing that you've experienced everything truly satisfying and meaningful that life has to offer, and you've given every moment the energy, interest, and attention that that moment is needed to understand it and to nurture yourself, other people, and nature. In other words, you learn what love is objectively and how to integrate it into your experience of everyday life, how to create meaningful relationships that are passionately intimate and that grow over time. You learn how to understand multiple perspectives, your own, people you know, people across the world. Understanding multiple perspectives has never been a human strong suit. We've generally been so self-absorbed, we could never understand anyone else's perspective, not even people close to us, our children, our mates, sometimes especially not our children and our mates. So understanding that life requires learning, there are many mysteries to explore, and there are many skills that we need to acquire and master, and a whole vast inventory of information we need to accumulate to fulfill our potentials, feed our needs, and become completely human. So this completes the first 4 videos to introduce the topic of mental emotional development. In the future, I'll be doing more videos on individual topics to help you understand how to proceed. You can also read the 4 books that are the introductory books, and then also the 4 books that are the advanced books that you can find on my website, paulhatherley.com. Hoping you have a great new year, and we'll see you next time. Take care.